if the people who are listening want to get into real estate, they have to commit to it.
It's not a get rich quick, but it's a get rich for sure.
When you go to the program, you're committing 24 months minimum.
This is a wild place.
I don't know how you do it.
Welcome to the Invest This Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Bauer. I've been a real estate investor here in Phoenix for over 12 years, doing everything from wholesaling to fix and flips and apartment syndications. But the reason I started this podcast is because I believe that investing is about more than the money. Whether that's how to get closer to your family, to become a better leader, or to be more intentional with your health, I'm always trying to improve. My goal for this episode is that you get one thing that you can immediately invest in your life or business to get at least 1% better. So happy that you're here. Now let's get into it. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Invest This Podcast. I am your host, Scott Bauer, and today we have a special guest. We have a guy that I've known for a long time, Josh Axe, out of Pennsylvania. Josh, how you doing today?
Wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Josh lives in Pennsylvania. He's got some business that he does here in Arizona. He does some business in Pennsylvania. He's here visiting us today, and we just have known each other for a long time and do similar businesses. So I'm going to start it off there, and why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, so I'm Josh, and I have a business in Pennsylvania, some rentals there, and we try to help as many sellers as we can with their properties, and we like providing solutions for people. So getting creative with some things is a lot of fun. And I think when we connected way back, my father-in-law was someone that you worked with pretty closely. Byron Applegate is my father-in-law. And at the time, you guys were working pretty closely, partnering on some deals and whatnot. And he told me that you were a resource to find more sellers. And so that's kind of how we met.
Yeah, that is definitely how we met. It's interesting when I think back to that time because we did a lot of deals. It wasn't like it was a couple here and there. We did a lot of deals, and that was really the big start. I learned a lot from your father-in-law as well as his partner at the time, and it really set me up for a lot of what I know today, to be honest. But ultimately, what does your business look like now? Like, what did you do back then? For the listeners that are listening to this, what did you do back then, and what are you doing now?
Yeah, so I guess I could give you the whole kind of rundown. So I started in real estate in 2014. I started in property management here in Arizona, and my job was signing up owners who owned real estate that needed it managed. So back in 2014, the values hadn't come back yet. Yep. A lot of people were still underwater, and they thought, geez, I need to move out or change my debt to income, so I'm going to rent it out. And when you have a professional management company, you can count that income towards your debt to income. So it helped a lot of people out. And so I would go on these appointments with owners and basically would talk to them about how much their property could rent for and what improvements needed to be made. I realized all these people are making like $400 or $500 a month, and we're doing all the work. I'm like, damn, how do I get some rentals? Like, that sounds awesome, And then was with that company for a while, learned a lot. They were awesome. And then switched to a different property management company because the compensation plan changed at the first one. So switched companies, and then that's when I got more into like traditional real estate sales where I was, representing buyers and sellers. And then my wife got into school in Pennsylvania, and so that's why we actually moved out there. So when we moved out there, I had accumulated, 2 or 3 years pretty like everyday learning, YouTube University about real estate investing and rentals and whatnot, because the passive income really attracted me. So
of course, who doesn't like passive income?
Yeah. It's never passive though. Like, no one tells you that it's not passive income at all.
That's the truth. We'll come back to that.
But sure. It's great at building wealth too. And we could get into that as well. But move out to PA, and we're in this little town near Wilkes-Barre, Scranton area. For those that are familiar, it's like a couple hours north of Philly. Small market. I think between the two counties, there's like 500,000 people, whereas Maricopa County is 4 million.
Right.
So completely different. Yeah. And then median values there are like 150. So, completely different market. But so we're there, and one of the girls that my wife was going to school with, her husband and her had moved from Tucson. And so I was like, oh, other people from Arizona, cool. So we all got dinner, and her husband happened to be a doctor, and the wife, who was my wife's friend, had said, oh yeah, my husband, likes real estate, blah, blah, blah. And as an agent, I'm like, oh, great. Another doctor who wants to invest in real estate who's never going to do anything. And then he was like, oh, great. Another realtor who doesn't know anything about real estate investing, you know? And so we got together and it's like, oh, he had, I don't know, 20 units at the time in Tucson. And then I had years of property management experience. So we're like, oh, we actually both know some things. Maybe there's some collaboration that we could do.
We both do know what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe. And so like, you know, and there was a moment, and his name's Mike. He's like one of my best friends. There's a moment where when we're at dinner and I'm like, so do you like guns? You know, and then we just like hit it off, dude. Like, so we just became bros after that. And we initially started a business to flip properties together, but then we were walking our dogs and we were near this like levee in Pennsylvania. And there was this like dilapidated 35 unit building. And so we're like, oh, well, we should send that a letter. You know, you never know. And so long story short, we end up negotiating 99% seller financing. It's a 35 unit building. We put 1% down, buy it, rehab it. You know, you didn't have to put up much because it was 1% down. So
right.
We were 50-50. He lent the business some money to speed up the rehabs. So that was in 2017, January, we bought it. And then in September that same year, it appraised for like 1.2 million more than we had bought it for. So did a cash out refi. And then that's when it was just like,
now I got some cash.
Yeah. Started sending some mail. And so in between that time is actually when we connected, because I think it was after I did the refi, you know, I had personally gotten around 200,000 in cash. I think it was like 176 or something. And I had bought one flip prior to that, like just offhand, crappy property, shouldn't have bought it, learned a ton, made like $1,500, you know, whatever.
Keywords learn.
Yeah, no. And I got, you know, $100,000 worth of education. So
sure.
Like a lot of people pay for these courses. I was like thick skulled and thought I'll learn it myself. I'm fairly smart, whatever, you know? And, so after that, my brokerage fired me because I didn't use the brokerage to buy the property. And so I'm like, all right, I guess I'm doing this investing thing. I already had the 35 units. And after we did that refi, I sent out some mail. And I think that's when we connected, because I'm like, I need to be able to talk to more sellers to get better deals. And so my father-in-law, Byron, who's a legend, connected us. And you were like, I was like starstruck with what you were doing. I mean, at the time, I think you're like, oh yeah, I send, I don't know, 20,000 pieces of mail. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so much. Like, how do you even answer the phone and whatever? So anyways, you're an inspiration to me for sure.
Cool.
But yeah, so now, you know, last year we did 49 transactions. So we flipped most of those. I currently personally have 52 rentals. So all of the stuff I had in partnerships, I've sold, and then I rolled those funds into my own deals. So
is the 35 unit building still part of it?
We sold it. Nope. So we sold that.
Yep.
So we bought it for 135 in 2017, and we sold it in 21 for 3.3 million.
Okay.
Cash. So it was like killer deal, you know.
Yeah. 21, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great time to sell it for sure.
It was literally the best. Like it was February of 21, you know, like interest rates were still really low. And we just made out like bandits.
Absolutely.
On the deal, so.
And then you said you have how many rentals?
52.
52. All
yep.
Single family stuff? Is
mostly multis. So
small.
I have a 22 unit, an 8 unit, and then I have several 4s, 3s, and 2s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no single family properties.
Is it all on seller financing stuff? Is it stuff where
none of them are? Well, only one is, and it's a 4 unit.
Okay.
My most recent purchase actually, and we bought that. I kind of overpaid for it, but it was one of those like get creative to help the seller situations where they were tired landlords. They didn't like managing the property. There was a lot of deferred maintenance, and they felt like, well, we need to get out of this, but we have a mortgage. They had a number in mind. So we ended up hitting the number, which was $350,000 for 4 units. The gross rents at acquisition were $32.25. And they wanted $1,650 a month and to pay off their mortgage, which was $63,000. So we paid that off, and then we did $1,650 a month for 6 years, principal only.
That's a great deal.
100%. I would do it every day,
all day long, right?
Yeah.
This is the creative thing you get with creative finance. Is you can do terms like that.
I helped them. I'm getting helped. We've since bumped the rents. I think $600 total between all the units. So the tenants got a small bump, but they're still under market. They're happy. We've made significant repairs to because they would reach out to the previous landlord and they just wouldn't respond.
Sure.
So we've taken care of all their maintenance requests, get things caught up, and then, we get a big equity gain over the next 6 years, which is awesome. And then the seller gets residual income.
For doing nothing and no risk.
And they also don't get the tax hit too. So a lot of people don't realize when someone does seller financing, or like if they sell a property without doing seller financing, if they're on like Medicare or Medicaid, that income will disqualify them from those government programs because their income will show higher, like above the limits.
They have a big bump, even though that's not sustainable over more than that one.
Correct.
time.
It's just a one-time event, but it doesn't matter. And so like seller financing in this circumstance was super helpful for them, and it was super helpful for us. So
I actually did a similar deal like that at the end of last year, fourplex in Tempe. A little bit different of a number though. I bought it for $1,050,000. Yeah. But the $1,050,000 is deferred for 10 years, so I don't owe it to him for 10 years, and I'm paying him $3,000 a month interest only for 10 years. So realistically speaking, in 10 years, he's going to have a taxable event that's going to happen. It's when he wants his payoff, or we're going to extend the terms, similar terms for longer. But ultimately, seller financing, I feel like today is even more applicable than ever before because people don't know where to put their money. And so if you can get cash flow instead of getting one lump sum, you save on the tax hit, and you also get monthly cash flow. And I guess the biggest thing is that tax hit scenario.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you can also factor in age too. Like if they are currently working or they have other pensions or whatever, like sometimes those pensions come to an end.
Yeah.
And so if you can structure it to say, hey, we'll wait to pay you out until after your pension ends, or, like you can structure it based on what people needs. And the nice thing is like you can create whatever type of scenario you want, seller financing or creative finance. Whereas if you go to a regular bank, it's 30% down. I mean, nowadays they're probably 30% down. It really depends on, the deal and your income and everything else.
Sure.
But 20 to 30% down minimum. And then, all the other BS you have to qualify for. With seller financing, you and the seller can come to what works for you guys.
Right.
And then you just write it up. Like you have a title company or attorney write it up and you're done.
How much are you actually emphasizing that today?
Well, I talked to my team about it and we've implemented that. Like I'm training them more on subject to seller financing, contract for deed. I mean, similar, it's basically the same thing as seller financing, but
Pennsylvania is an attorney state. Yeah. So
it's both.
It's
actually.
both.
Yeah.
How does that
work?
work?
You can do both. So it's really up to you and the buyer, or the seller and the buyer.
Is the fees the same?
Yeah. So you have a 1% standard transfer tax, and then there's municipal taxes that are transfer tax as well. So like,
what about title fees though? So title or attorney fees? You'd think an attorney would probably be more.
They're
more
about
expensive.
the same.
Really?
Yeah, they're about the same, honestly, because like attorneys got smart to like, hey, we're going to lose business if we don't charge the same.
Sure.
But like one of the attorneys I use, he does 3,000 transactions a year. So like he's just built this whole team on that's all they do. And so they've partnered with some of the largest brokerages and like create separate partnerships where the brokerage gets a piece of it, but then they funnel everything through that attorney. So
makes a lot of sense.
Pretty
to do
smart.
That way.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's a brilliant dude.
See an opportunity to do that. So now that you have, you're doing around, what'd you say, 60 transactions a year?
Yeah. Last year we did 49 and, that was like a killer year.
Sure.
And then I got into Investor Fuel, which, like Todd Swaggerty's a mutual friend.
Yep.
And shout out Todd if you happen to listen to this.
He doesn't know this yet, but he's going to actually sponsor this podcast. So,
good.
Yeah, he doesn't know that yet, but so when he sees this episode.
He's cheap though, man. He's cheap. That'll prove you're a good salesman.
That's right. I'm not.
I believe in you.
Yeah.
So Todd, I was talking to him. He was coming out to Scottsdale. I saw that he was tagged in the event or whatever. And I'm like, hey man, get me tickets and I'll give you a ride in my car. You and I like cars, whatever.
Yeah.
And so he ends up mentioning, well, hey, we're just bullshitting.
Yeah.
And he's like, so how'd you do last year? Whatever, let's talk about it, because this is January.
Of this year.
Okay. So we're just talking and, I told him did 49 deals. This was the gross revenue, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, hey man, that's pretty good. You should consider joining. There's some rock stars here. And I'm like, let me hear about it. He's like, well, you might be able to get into platinum, which there's like levels to the group, and platinum is like 50 to 100 deals. And I'm like, damn, I'm barely going to get into platinum. Like, what are those guys doing?
Yeah.
So then that's when I like joined the group to try and like level up. And so the first half of this year, we've done, like, Pennsylvania is interesting, where we'll do 25% of our business in the first 6 months and then 75% on the second
Tail
6
end.
months. Yeah.
Is that seasonal because of the...
Pretty much. I mean,
Yeah.
it just tends to be that way. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's because of how like the auctions are set up, or if that's just the way that people operate, but like year in, year out, first half 25%, second half 75%. So this year we've tripled what we did last year in the first 6 months. And so I'm hopeful that the second half of the year will also be triple, because then that would be around 150 deals.
So I kind of want to stop you there,
Yeah.
because you don't just triple your business
Yeah.
by going to one mastermind event, in this case, Investor Fuel. So
Yep.
what is the metric? What specifically are you doing different now that's going to gain you that
Absolutely.
opportunity, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. So there's several things. I think one of the most important ones is really focusing on the brand. So we started doing like TV ads. So I got connected with 10X TV. So they're the people who run my ads. They like negotiate with all the brand people or whatever, or like the TV stations direct. And so apparently they get some discount because they buy in bulk.
Sure.
It's probably all BS. Who knows?
Way to upcharge you a little bit.
But it's also like you get to a point where you're like, they're doing it.
Yeah.
And it's not worth the time for me to go to every station and negotiate and beat up and whatever. It's like a
totally believe in
done
that.
for you solution, right?
Yep.
So I'm like, whatever. So I signed up for that. So we're running like 1,100 commercials a month. And that's been pretty big in terms of brand recognition,
Mm-hmm.
because when you're on TV, it gives you a lot of credibility.
Sure does.
So that's a big piece of it. And then we're going heavier on PPC, heavier on direct mail, heavier on Facebook, YouTube, those types of channels. So those have been kind of the things that we've done. And then I also have hired internally to help manage those things. So I've always used a call center for my inbound calls. So all of those calls come in to a call center. And then from there, they get input into our CRM. Acquisition manager gets the call from there, can listen to the recording, follow up, make the offer, negotiate, whatever. And then, we've hired like a transaction coordinator, executive assistant type role, which has been a challenge right now.
Growing pains.
Growing pains for sure. And then I did bring on that second acquisition manager. So, now we have two people that handle that, because my one acquisition manager it's a good problem to have. Like, we had so many good leads that he couldn't follow up with them all. So
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So we run similar types of businesses. Mine is still very boutique, as you would say, right? Very, very efficient, I'm going to call it, right?
Yep.
Very small. I don't have any acquisitions people. It's just me.
Mm-hmm.
For you, that probably is a way for you to have been able to grow, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can't handle 3 times the amount of deal flow because I just choose not to, unless I had somebody else to come in and do that. So I guess let's talk about that. So you have, what does your team look like? It's you and your CEO or oversighting everything. And then there's your one acquisition person, your TC person, and your
So basically I have me, and then I had the executive assistant that you would call like the right-hand person.
Yep.
So she's handling, she was also handling a lot of coordination with like showings and things like that. Helping to manage the transactions. Title says, hey, we need this document. Hey, we need that document. Hey, we need this signed, whatever. So she would handle that. So she was CC'd on all those emails. She would also put together marketing material. So, like we do credibility packets, which is nice. I didn't really have her putting together mailers. She had in the past. And, she's just very familiar with Canva and that kind of thing. So like
she's creative
and really good at it. So
Yeah.
she would just hammer these things out, makes us look super professional. So it's me and then her, and then I have the 2 acquisition guys. And that's pretty much it. So then we have they have the call center that's kind of separate. And then I have, for my rental business, a property manager. And then I have like maintenance people and stuff like that. And then we have teams of contractors that we hire for flips.
Right. Yeah.
So those are like separate. They're not in-house employees, but
Right.
we work with them a lot.
Sure. Yeah. I
So-
mean, they're just the people that actually go and they're 1099s that are out there, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's what they
Mhm.
are. So, I mean, overall, like, are the 2 acquisition people able to handle that type of volume?
Yeah.
How many transactions in a month are they able to do, or does each one do?
Yeah, I mean, the one guy we just hired, he started full-time May 1st, so he's a month in.
Yep.
And he started like April 23rd or something like that. So he's still like getting familiar with everything because it's a lot to just, he's never done real estate. He's done like roof sales and things like that. So he's learning the lingo and the flow of things. So
How do you pay him? Is it a commission based?
So
Does he have
he's-
a run-up period?
Yep. So it's salary or bonus, whatever's greater. And so the bonus is paid as a percentage of profit. And then that's on the first 6 deals. And then after the first 6 deals or 90 days, he gets bumped up. And so they still get salary. So it's like a flat salary of $3K a month for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get percentage of profit.
Okay.
So, and that's per month. So like, let's say, there's a killer month and their income would be $10,000 per month. They still get always paid on the 1st and 15th, no matter what. So they're always getting that check. And then whatever is above that, they would get paid out the day of us receiving those funds.
So the accounting split, do you have an accountant that does that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's another key, person part
Yeah.
of the team, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Outsourced, but yeah.
When I think about like who's important, my attorney is really important.
Yeah.
My bookkeeper is really important. These are people that aren't on my like salary
Yep.
necessarily, but
Yep.
I still pay them every month. For
So
the most
I would
part,
I would say I have a bookkeeper as well. So I use Resimply
Mhm.
for my CRM,
Mhm.
and Sherrod he's the owner of it. He was gracious enough to let me use his bookkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
And so every week he'll go through. Resimply is nice because it links to your bank account or bank accounts. There's 3 accounts that we use, and so like one's a credit card, the other 2 are just like operating accounts.
Mhm.
And so every week he'll go through and balance all of those books and also assign them to marketing channels.
Okay.
So you get weekly updates of your KPIs, you get weekly updates of your ROAS. I mean, all of it's there for you in a weekly spreadsheet, basically, so you can know exactly where you're at, which is nice.
I think you showed me when we went to lunch that one day about like what it looks like on a
Yeah.
brief, like look at the platform.
It's nice. I mean, I've sold a lot of people on it, because it's like, hey, I'm not like, I've learned enough about myself that like, I'm not going to sit in front of a spreadsheet and plug this shit in for 5 hours. And because it takes me 5 hours, because I'll be doing it for a few minutes, get distracted, a lead will come in, someone will call me, whatever happens. And so it's like, okay, I'm not going to do this. I know I'm not going to do it. So I'm going to hire it out. And so now like having a system that tracks it all, plus someone who actually inputs the data, which was initially why I hired an executive assistant in the first place. So that role kind of had morphed, and then now it morphed kind of in a different way. So anyways.
Just trying to get your time back. That's really
100%.
Everything you just said is like, oh, you just want to get your time back.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
And
And to be able to be efficient.
yeah.
That's really the key. Like,
So, I mean, you've had a lot of success in this short amount of time, right? You have
Mhm.
a good system. It looks like that you've been able to build. You're able to have a business in Pennsylvania and still have something going on here in Phoenix.
Mhm.
Where does it go? Do you have a destination of where this goes, or
yeah,
is there
the long-term goal, I've been kind of building like an investor list of people who want to be passive investors with me. Passive, right? No
Yep.
such thing, but
somebody who wants to give you their money and you give them a return?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
So, I have a list of about 1,000 people now who want to
Okay.
be limited partners in deals. And I've kind of just been waiting for Phoenix to turn. I track a lot of the data here in terms of bridge debt and like large multifamily loans that are expiring. A lot of these loans were written with 3, 4, 5% interest rates. The rates are much higher than that. It's it's June 3rd today.
Yep.
So a lot of these loans are expiring in the next 6 to 12 months, and there's like hundreds of millions of dollars worth of loans expiring, and the rates aren't going to be 3, 4, 5 like when they were written.
And they
so,
bought these things on a 3 cap, 4 cap, anticipating a 5 cap when they were sold.
and anticipating the market to keep going up.
Right.
So the long-term goal is to get more into the multifamily space when opportunity presents itself. And as a doer like you, it's been so hard to not jump into something, but like I can't.
It's not here yet.
It's not here. And I can't take someone else's money and say, hey, let's do this deal when it's not a deal, because I wouldn't put my own money in the deal.
I'm literally waiting for the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I have been waiting really since, if I look back 12, 11, or 12, 13, 14, 15, like this time when there was another good opportunity to buy, or even probably before that, right after the recession, 11, 12, 13, when there was a really good opportunity.
Yep.
I wasn't educated enough at that point to make a decision, but I am today, and I have to wait. And
I know.
like you, I have to wait and just kind of hold off because I don't want to make it stupid.
You.
It does.
I know.
But at the same time, I also know it's coming, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably the more exciting part, is because once I go grab something very large or something that's a game changer for the trajectory of me and my family's life forever, now all of a sudden I look back and say that was smart to hold on.
For sure.
Right? That's interesting, though. I think that now is one of those opportunities that, like, once this time passes, again, we won't see another one for a while. Now, people always probably say that. I think it comes around every 10 or 20 years, no matter what. But I'm excited for it.
Me too.
I really am.
Yeah, and I've been like intentional about building an investor list, like sending them updates, showing them things that I'm seeing. Like I sent out an email to the list like a month ago, and I was actually reading through like the 10Ks, which is like a REIT will publish their 10K, which is like their annual report. And dude, I'm telling you, there's like 75% of their loans are in default likely status.
Oh yeah, no, I mean for sure.
For a whole REIT.
Well, think about this too.
Billions of dollars.
They buy this property on a 3 cap or a 4 cap. They renovate the entire thing, or maybe they try to get there. They get it leased up, but now their leases aren't going as high as they thought they were going to.
Because it softened, for sure.
Because it definitely softened. I mean, I'm seeing it softening in my own rental portfolio here in Phoenix, for sure. Like, we're having to lower prices in order to get people in. Or what's happening is we just got a bunch of 30-day notices for people that are leaving because they can go
somewhere else that's
nicer, that's cheaper, right? And it's like, okay, so I'm fighting to try to keep these people by lowering the rent, offering them something, right? But anyways, you go back to these large apartment deals, like now they raised money originally to buy the deal, right? They renovated it, and now they're trying to lease it up. Now their term is going to end, right? So, or their loan is going to come due. Their bridge loan is going to come due. They can't refinance to something because it doesn't make any money. It doesn't cash flow. They can't go back to their investor and do a cash call because they'd have to. If they were going to refinance it, the bank is going to require 30 or 40% down, which means they're going to have to come up with more cash, right? So what happens in that standpoint?
Foreclosures, I think. Yeah, banks are going to take them back. I'm already seeing, like I get listings from quite a few brokers, and I'm already seeing some real estate owned apartment communities already. Like, so, I'm kind of patiently waiting for things to really hurt, because it is happening, and there are people that are hurting. And, I've met with several syndicators here, and it's interesting because one of them in particular was like, if you buy anything in Phoenix, you'll be smart to get it, because no matter what, it's going to go up. And I just heard that they're doing cash calls now.
Oh, yeah.
They're feeling the pain, and I'm like, I could feel that it was bad. And now for you to be going through that, it's like, because they were kind of arrogant towards me, like, well, you're playing small in this Pennsylvania market. Like, I wouldn't, literally word for word, I wouldn't get out of bed for the deal that I did that made over $1 million in 8 months. I wouldn't get out of bed for that.
And now they
told me that.
These people are going to get crushed. The person that said that is going to get crushed.
Unless they can raise tens of millions of dollars and navigate their way through it. I hope they do, because I don't want someone to get hurt. But like, for you to say that to me, and then like, I could see the writing on the wall, but their ego wouldn't, like, they couldn't admit that they were incorrect or whatever. So it's like, the truth will be known no matter what. And so
I'm normally like, I'm a very conservative person. When I think of like, if I had to classify myself as something, conservative would probably be it.
Yep.
Like not that I don't like to take risks. I think all entrepreneurs have to take risks in order to get to where they're at, but it's calculated risk. For sure. And I think education kind of reduces your risk liability for sure.
Absolutely.
And like, I actually just had lunch with a guy that is a very large apartment owner in town, and he sold everything in I think he said the end of 21 or the beginning of 22.
Smart.
Sold everything that he had, made out like a bandit,
Yeah.
did really, really well, and is just sitting and waiting. And he actually thinks that it's going to be into next year, maybe summertime of next year before the really, really good deals start to hit.
Interesting. Yeah.
And, you know, I'm watching it too. You know, it's like the thing to do today, I think, if you're in a position to make money is save your pennies, put them in a spot where you can deploy them when the opportunity comes.
Yeah.
You know, don't have everything tied up. Don't over leverage yourself. Like those are good tips
sure.
to have in
Always,
today's market.
always,
But even more now,
especially
right?
now, yeah.
Because when that time does come, like you want to be able to pounce and have the
100%.
ability to do that.
Yeah.
So by going out, it's interesting that you have this investor list. So like, who are these people? Are these people that you've run into?
Yep.
You know, do you have a RIA that you go to, or people
it's like it actually started as like an education platform, but it's called Lifestyles Unlimited. I think I mentioned it.
You
to
did
before.
mention that, yeah.
So it's essentially like an education platform for like doctors, lawyers, orthodontists, dentists to like learn how to invest passively into real estate. But then I think they realized like, hey, there's not a lot of opportunities, and a lot of these people won't ever do anything unless they have someone show them the way.
They need their hand
Be
held.
the lead, you know, like be a sponsor. And so essentially you have to complete their like professional investing course. Once you do that, you can apply to be a lead sponsor, syndicator, whatever you want to call it. So then once you pass that education course, then they certify you as like a aspiring lead or like aspiring sponsor. And so then you get on the celebration list where all of the 10,000 people who are members of that investing group as a whole who've completed that education course, all of those people have access to your name, your bio, things you've done in the past, whatever. And then they can request to be on your list. And so then you go through, you have a conversation with them. A lot of them I've met in person from these expos that I've gone to. So it's cool, but it's kind of a pay to play. You know, you got to pay to be a member of the group. You got to pay to take all the education courses.
I mean, I almost think that's better though. Like when it's kind of like people that join a country club, right? Yeah. If you join a country club and it costs you, I don't know, $60,000 a year, whatever it costs you to join a country club, you know that the other people that are in the country club also paid that. Therefore, they're also willing to put the investment in to be able to build the connections with other people that think the same way.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Right.
Paying to play is just the reason why, like mastermind groups, like you're talking about with Investor Fuel or others, you know, they require you have to pay to get into them because they want to make sure the quality is there of the person. And so I totally believe in that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty cool. You know, if you didn't know what Lifestyles Unlimited was, if you just saw that written on the wall, you might think that's like a swinger club or something.
You know what's funny?
Right?
So many people say that. Like I never would have put it together, but I've heard that so many times.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So yeah, anyways, I mean, it's cool. Sounds like there's a lot of opportunity that's coming like in the future for you. You have a pretty good projection of where you're going to go, what you're using the wholesale business for. It's not just because, you know, one of the things I struggled with a long time is like, why am I even doing the wholesale business, right? Like wholesaling or flipping or just, you know, regular real estate transactions is it's just transactional volume, right?
Yep.
So once you sell a deal, you got to go find another deal. It's just transactional volume. But if you use those funds for a purpose, that's why I have it. I use it as a revenue generator where I can then take that revenue and deploy it into other long-term plays, right? And that's the whole game. And so kind of what, it sounds like we're doing a similar thing is like looking for the good opportunity, what's going to come in the future where we can deploy this money to do something that's epic, right? To do something that's huge.
And I also... in the market that I'm in Pennsylvania, I also recognize that there's a need for good property management. So I'm actually partnering with my property manager who's a licensed agent. She's getting her broker's license, and then we're going to partner to create property management / brokerage. So then we'll be able to manage properties for other people. So then, you can kind of look at it a couple different ways. Like we get to monetize those leads, every lead really, in a lot of different ways. Like, for example, let's say there's a deal that I want to take down, but I don't want to hold it long term. I might know someone that's here in Phoenix that, hey, I want to be able to buy a property for $100,000, $250,000 or less if it needs remodeling. So then I can sell them the property, make a profit. I can manage the rehab for them, make a profit. and then I can manage the property long term for a profit. So then I can get money 3 different ways on that lead. And then if the deal doesn't make sense to flip the property, then I could just have the broker list the property for sale traditionally and make a fee that way.
I got another spot for you to make money on that same deal.
Let's hear it.
You need to get in title. You need to be part of title. You need to get title or attorney. Whatever one you go with the relationship, having a JV partnership in that really makes a huge difference. That's another piece to that puzzle.
Yep, that's smart.
That's a fourth way to make money, right?
Yeah, and then there's like landscaping business, pest control business, snow removal. You know, like it just creates a lot. You become the octopus. You know, where you have all these income streams. So we think the same way, definitely.
I mean, it's just we always think of like where is the opportunity at, right? Like how can we seize the opportunity, taking what we're already doing. And figuring out how to
maximizing the value we can get.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
And give. Really. And give. I mean, because the reality is the property managers that I've come across in Pennsylvania are terrible. Really. I mean, truly,
arguably all over the place, man.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You know, but we want to create one that really takes care of the tenants, that really helps owners out, and then also like makes the community better as a whole. Because tenants need to be taken care of, owners need to be taken care of, and if we can make a little bit of money helping out both sides, why shouldn't we?
100%. I mean, you know, if you help enough other people get what they want, you definitely get what you want, right? Standard quotes. Right? Yep, all day. And that's really a good transition because I want to switch now. Okay, so you have a great business going, you have a great business mind, and how you're continuing to evolve and get better. How does like make sense in your life? Like, what do you do with your personal life, right? Yeah. I really believe in how you do one thing is how you do everything. And therefore, that means that you have a good business sense. You also have a good health mindset. You have a good family mindset, right? Talk to me about those things. What does your health life look like?
Yeah. You know, I try to eat really good. I exercise, 4 to 6 days a week, depending on how hard the workouts are. I do CrossFit, a fellow CrossFitter. I think you've switched to F45 though.
I have. Just
probably better on the joints.
It is a little bit, I think. Yeah.
My wrist is bugging me right now as I say that. I'm making fun of you a little bit, but it's smart, and you're looking healthy. So I like it. So I do make an effort to stay fit. I think some of my best friends have come from CrossFit gyms, and I think the reason is they're driven the same way we are.
Yep.
In terms of they want to push the limits of themselves, they want to push the limits of their boundaries in all aspects of their life, and fitness is definitely one that you can challenge yourself on. And you realize that, man, this really sucks, but it's going to be worth it. And it's the same thing with our businesses. And then in terms of family, I was super lucky to marry an absolute wonderful human being. And I think that's been kind of the foundation that I've built the rest of my life on. So I think having a great wife or a great life partner that helps push you to be the best you can be also matters a lot.
100%.
If you're like, I think about if I was not married to who I'm married to, or if I was single, I'd be out trying to meet, chase tail, whatever. I'm not going to be focused. I'm going to be out late. I'm not going to be doing the things that I need to be doing. Right. And then if I'm tired or foggy or trying to text some girl or something, like I'm not going to focus on the things that'll help build the empire.
Right.
My wife is also on board with that vision, so that's really cool that we've been able to, especially recently, she's really come into the view of like, hey, what we're doing could actually be really big and really beneficial for our family, for the families that we employ, for our kids, for their kids. Like we're really setting something up for generational wealth, and that's the goal.
And also being an example to your kids now, right?
Absolutely.
They get to see dad do these things, these different, and be this person. Therefore, it's going to, impact them as well. Mm-hmm. It's so similar. Once again, how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? Mm-hmm. It's not a coincidence that you wake up and go to CrossFit and do hard workouts, hard WODs that are like seemingly like, I mean, dude, they hurt.
Miserable.
Right? Miserable. Like
the pain cave.
Right. Yeah. But you do it because you know what the end is going to, you suffer through that pain in order to get to the end where you feel so rewarded, right?
For sure.
The same thing happens within business, right? You go through these struggles and adversity that that seems to be very tough at the moment, but you know that at the end it matters.
Absolutely.
Same thing. You decided to find it's not a coincidence you found your wife, right?
Yeah,
I
for
feel
sure.
very blessed to have the same thing.
Yep.
My wife is amazing,
Yep.
absolutely stunning in every way, shape, and form. And if I didn't have her, to what you were talking about, like I wouldn't be focused on growing my life and being impactful
Yep.
for my family now and our future family later, right? I mean, like that stuff all matters.
It makes you more selfless in the things that you do.
100%.
And also, like, you know, I think women are really good at that reality check of like, hey, what's the real reason we're doing this? You know, like, are we just doing it for us? Are we just doing it to be selfish? Come on, this is bigger than that.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
Really, like, because I think it's easy to get caught up in like more. And, you know, Lauren especially is good at like, okay, well, why? What are we going to do? Like, how are we going to help someone else with that? Like, you know, I'm a member of the advisory committee of the John Volkin Academy, which is the addiction recovery program that saved my life. You know, like, how do we give back to that? Like, how do we, you know, one of my things is like the founder of that program grew a business to over $100 million annually, sold the business for hundreds of millions. And he literally took that money, donated every dollar of it to a charity, and just runs charities to help people's lives. The only way he was able to do that is because he focused for years and years on creating massive wealth for himself and his family, and then donated all of it so that he could help actually change the world and like save my life because of it. So like, it's our responsibility as smart entrepreneurs to do everything we can to get money that we can use to help other people. And sometimes we have to be stingy with it or prudent with it, like in a way that feels maybe unfair to some people. But, you know, I had experiences with John Volkin where, you know, he said to me, like, I'm going to do so much good with this money. I have to get it. It's my responsibility to get this.
I'm trying to think, is John Volkin, does Spencer Applegate do something with John?
I don't think so.
No?
Mm-mm.
I think it was when we were golfing one day and he was talking about some charity, I thought, that was helping. I don't know. Couldn't have been
Oh,
right.
maybe I think he had the guys over to play pickleball at his house.
Yeah.
That might have been what it was. Yeah.
And he was like hanging out with them more.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like, so he was feeling like really empowered with these people.
Oh,
like
they're
really
incredible guys.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
and
just-
these guys, like, you know, when you go to the program, you're committing 24 months minimum that you're going to live there, work there, change your life. You're committed to
And
sobriety.
it's like addiction recovery stuff.
Yep.
So drugs, alcohol,
Yep.
whatever.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Drugs and
yeah.
alcohol. Yeah.
Hey man, there's a lot of other sex
100%.
addictions.
Yeah.
And like
I
all sorts of different
guess
stuff,
there's
right?
people who have been there for that. But during my time that I was in there and that I was running it, you know, it was primarily drugs and alcohol.
Sure.
But that's actually why I moved to Arizona in the first place, was to open a location here. So I went to the
I did not
Mills
know
in
that.
Canada. Yeah. So I'm from Utah.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Utah and then made some terrible choices, got addicted to heroin. So then tried a couple different rehabs. They didn't work, and then found the one in Canada. So moved out there, lived there, committed my life to the 2 years. Like, I was willing to do whatever it took to get clean. And so after having gone through that, they asked me if I wanted to open one here in Arizona. And I was like, I'm honored. Of course, like, let's go. So then moved out here, opened that location, grew it to, I don't know, a dozen or so students, and then got engaged. And then at that point got into real estate, you know, because I needed to make more money and whatever.
I don't know if we should have started the show with that.
I know.
Or what. I guess I
know.
didn't realize that. So
Yeah.
that's huge. And so obviously you've been clean ever since that time.
Yep.
You know, it's wild to me how much drugs and alcohol take over people's lives.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it absolutely is mind blowing to
Yep.
me. Not something I'm so grateful I ever had to deal with, but it's like, it just overcomes people's lives.
Oh, yeah.
100%. Right. So really glad that you got it out of it. That's for sure.
Yeah. October 15th, 2010 is when I went to the program. So
Wow. It's been a while.
Been sober since then. So
Was that, it's
14 years.
Yeah, 14 years.
13 and a half, I guess, technically. But yeah.
yeah, dude, that's awesome. That's awesome.
It's been a
So
wild ride.
I bet. Yeah. But I mean, look how far you've come, right? Look at
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's crazy, right? Like how one thing leads to the next,
Yep.
which leads to the next, which leads you to where you're at today.
Oh, yeah. And like, I wouldn't trade any of it. Being a drug addict, I wouldn't trade it, because had I not gone through the program, I wouldn't have met John. I wouldn't have had the same mindset. I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have, you know what I mean? Like, it all dominoes in a way that you could never see coming.
Yeah.
When I'm homeless, doped up, going through withdrawals, like you would think this guy's a lost cause,
Once again, man, like this comes down, it's how you do one thing, it's how you do everything, right? You start it, it's like the mindset of that from the very beginning.
sure.
Like addicted to heroin, you said, and like you're like, I'm out, I'm done. So then you make a commitment to like going all in for the next step. And this has happened multiple times for you,
That's
right?
the key, is going all in.
Dude, yeah, you have to
It
do
is
that.
really. Like,
You really, if you're committed to it, right? Burn the boats.
Everything
Burn the
that
boats.
has been great in my life has been 100% commitment.
Yeah.
I 100% committed to my sobriety, changed my life. 100% committed to my wife, changed my life. 100% committed to real estate, changed my life. Anything that's worth doing in your life is worth committing to if you can withstand the pressures of exiting, whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah.
I had so many temptations to just bail from recovery. Like with social media, there's so many temptations to not be faithful to a wife. With business, there's so many things that can distract us from the important revenue generating activities. But when you're 100% committed, it's like you have the blinders on and you just focus on what's important, and everything gets better,
That's dude, it's 100% the truth right there. Like commitment across the board, as you just said, is what changes
to your
everything.
health. I mean,
right.
All of it, you
Right.
know?
And it's a lifestyle thing, right?
Yeah.
It's the choice you make and the decisions that you make in every single segment of your life that ultimately gets you to who you are today. And I love to see it. What do you have in the future? Like what's the next thing for you?
Yeah. The property management business should be launching pretty soon.
Dude, that could be huge. I mean,
100%.
Like that, especially if you're looking at buying apartment deals, like property management is a big piece of it. Mm-hmm. It's also like as people right now, they can't sell their house for the money that they want, so they're making it into a rental. So therefore, more property management is needed. Yep. I mean, I have a property manager here in Phoenix, which arguably he's the best ever, right?
Don't share his name because then other people will get him too busy.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I mean, he's grown a lot, and his team is solid, right? And like they just moved offices not long ago to a bigger office in downtown Phoenix, and like, it's hard to find them. Yeah. And so if you can provide a good service and good property management, there's plenty of people out there that want it, right?
Yeah. And I mean, Pennsylvania has been, real tough. Like I literally cannot think of a single one that even comes to mind, like here in Phoenix, there's, you have several kind of bigger players that, Real Property Management, OnQ, Gentry, like you have people that are well known. There's not a single one in Pennsylvania that I could think of that's like actually worth something, So there's a huge opportunity.
Everything in Phoenix, like if you think about just real estate in general, right? Mm-hmm. Phoenix is the hottest market. Oh yeah. Right? The hottest market for the amount of big players in town, for the amount of transaction volume that happens here, the property management.
It's a Wild West, man.
Dude, it is. This is a wild place.
I don't know how you do it. You're going up against all the hedge funds, the players that have been doing it for 20 years that are on TV, all the every guru that's out there is here in Phoenix, Arizona. Like it's wild.
That's very true.
But I don't even know if they're even doing deals at this point because they're just educating, I
mean, I know all of them. I've known all of them for years. Like this place is so gigantic. We don't really run into each other.
Yeah, it is.
And if we do, the best man wins. That's all it comes down to. That's all it is.
I love the competitive spirit, man. I love it.
That's it.
I love it. That's great.
So if you could, I guess, leave our listeners like with like one piece of advice or one action item to leave this call on, like what would that be?
I think if the people who are listening want to get into real estate, they have to commit to it. And the thing that I always say to people is like, real estate is definitely not a get rich quick scheme,
right?
But it's a get rich for sure.
For sure, yeah. That's a good way to put it.
So like, if you want to get into the business, you can get rich for sure. You have to do enough of the right things for long enough, and it'll happen. But if you're looking to make a quick buck today, it's going to be a tough road because you're going to get kicked in the teeth and someone's going to outbid you and all the things are going to happen. But commit to the cause. Just commit, in general to whatever it is you're going to do and see it through to completion. Like don't give up before you're 2 inches from gold or diamonds or whatever the
shiny object is. Yeah. It's a great point, man. It really is. I think that's a good thing to end off on, just commitment in general. People that want to get into real estate specifically, it takes time,
But like you said, it's not a get rich quick, but it's a get rich for sure.
Yep.
And that's the truth. So, dude,
Absolutely.
I appreciate you being here, man.
Yeah, likewise, man. Thanks so much for having me.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll talk
it's
soon.
awesome. Cool.
See ya.
Later.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Invest This podcast. I know you got at least one thing from this episode, so drop us a like and click the subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. If you have any questions, thoughts, or suggestions for future episodes, make sure to leave us a comment below. I love hearing from you.